Okay, so today we're going to dive into a really powerful method for making sense of our crazy, complex information world. And we're going to do it by looking at a public debate featuring the analyst Peter Duke. He's known for his work on the Duke Report and his interviews with geopolitics and empire. And what you're about to see is basically a masterclass in how to take an argument apart piece by piece. So our story kicks off when Duke gets this, quote, friendly public critique of an interview he did. Now, right away, Duke flags that word, friendly. For him, the choice to do this in public instead of, a private phone call, that was an accident. That was a strategic choice of battlefield, a way of controlling the environment before the debate even starts. So instead of just getting into a back and forth, Duke saw a golden opportunity here. He decided to turn his entire response into a live demonstration of his analytical method. It was his chance to apply his principles of logic, or logos, and some serious discernment to break down the critique with a kind of constrained strength. So, what is this framework he uses? Well, it all starts with this core concept he developed called EpiWar 20, which is short for Epistemic War. And honestly, this idea is the foundation for everything we're about to talk about.
Here's the basic idea of EpiWar 10. Duke argues that the history we read isn't just a neutral collection of facts. Not at all. It's more like a curated dataset that's been shaped and filtered for centuries by the winners, by the people in power, by the gatekeepers with the funding. And this, right here, is the fundamental problem he's trying to tackle. I mean, how can you or I possibly find the truth when the historical record itself has been deliberately messed with? How do you form your own judgment without just repeating the biases of people who died a long, long time ago?
Duke's answer is this incredibly disciplined order of operations, a kind of stabilizing framework for your own judgment. Step 1, you look at the linguistic structure, literally how the sentences are built, before you even get to the ideas inside them. Step 2, then you ask if that structure seems honest. And only then, step 3, do you decide what to do about it.
All right, so let's see how this actually works. Duke takes this exact hierarchy and applies it to the 4 main critiques, the 4 epistemological blind spots, as he calls them, that this critic threw at him.
First up, the critic claims Duke uses neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, to just bypass doing any real research. But as you can see, Duke's actual point is completely different. He uses what he calls neurolinguistic rigor as a tool that checks an argument's architecture first. It lets you spot shaky logic before you waste years studying a flawed idea.
And he grounds this in the really practical and, frankly, kind of surprising origins of NLP. I mean, this wasn't some abstract theory from an ivory tower. The project was actually led by a retired U.S. Army Special Forces intelligence captain. It was a tool designed for high-stakes, real-world precision.
The second accusation is that he treats AI summaries like they're the same as real deep knowledge. But again, his actual position is way more specific. He sees large language models as amazing tools for linguistic analysis, for mapping out the shape of an argument, because, well, that's what they're literally built to do.
And this is a perfect example of a linguistic distortion Duke calls complex equivalence. See how it works? The critic sentence structure just smashes 2 totally separate ideas together, using a tool for analysis and abandoning deep study, and pretends they're the same thing. It's a subtle but powerful trick.
Okay, the third blind spot dives into semiotics, which is just the study of symbols. The critique takes Duke's specific observation that this one symbol, the Phrygian cap, keeps popping up in revolutions, and just blows it up into this huge conspiracy theory that Duke never even came close to claiming. He was pointing out a pattern, not some secret law of history.
And finally, the fourth one. His geopolitical analysis gets stretched into this absolute statement that all powerful nations are equally evil. Duke's actual point is that he sees evidence of coordinated policies popping up across different nations, but the accusation turns that nuanced observation into a really simplistic absolute claim.
And Duke gives this tactic a name too, a universal quantifier distortion. You really have to watch out for this one. Whenever you hear those absolute words like all, every, or any, there's a good chance someone is twisting a specific point into a giant generalization that's, frankly, just easier for them to attack.
So, after taking apart all 4 of those points using his linguistic framework, Duke finally pulls back the curtain and reveals what he thinks is the real issue here, the buried lead of the whole thing.
He basically argues that this entire attack on his methods, on NLP, on AI, was never really about his methods at all. It was all just a strategic smokescreen to distract from the real disagreement, his pretty challenging conclusions about major world powers. As he puts it so well, the goal was to shoot the messenger to weaken the message. It's a classic move, right? Discredit the analyst so you don't have to deal with his actual analysis, especially his claims about a unified global technocratic system.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? I mean, beyond this one specific intellectual squabble, what's the lesson that you and I can actually use in our own lives?
Well, it all comes back to this hierarchy for judgment. By putting structure first, before you even worry about who's saying it, you get a stable framework to evaluate anything that comes across your screen, whether it's an ancient text or a news alert on your phone. Analyze the language first, and you can see the bones of the argument.
And this, right here, is the really empowering part. You don't have to be a subject matter expert in everything to spot a weak argument. If you learn how to analyze the form of what someone is saying, you can start to identify those fallacies and distortions all on your own. It's a tool that, as Duke puts it, could make self-teaching, autodidacticism, go absolutely viral.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. In this modern EpiWar, this age of information overload, what if the most important skill isn't just knowing more stuff? What if it's learning how to listen differently, not just to what is being said, but to how it's being said?